Well, so last summer, my friend Kathy and I went camping at Enchanted Rock. It was in the middle of July and it was hot. Here's our little tent. During the day, we took refuge from the heat by visiting Longhorn Caverns. I'll save that tour for another story. But at night, thank God, Kathy brought these two little fans to keep us comfortable, but it really wasn't enough. Next morning, I did make it to the summit for this view, but the heat was so bad that the next night we got into a motel room. We gotta do something about that heat. Heard about some folks making air conditioners out of ice chest. So I got on YouTube and did some research and saw that Desert Sun had some instructions on building one. Well, so did this guy named Travis Ehrlich. But in both examples, holes were cut out of the cooler, rendering it useless as an ice chest again. Then I saw another example where automotive vlog did a review on the cooler air unit, which didn't use a sacrificial ice chest. He said it's basically a piece of crap. Yeah, it was. It was underpowered and had too small of an exhaust. But I like the idea because it's not trashing your ice chest. Then leave it up to the nerds in India to come up with this one. Bunch of 2-liter soda bottles are cut in half, and when compressed moving air flow from the wind through the smaller end, the air is cooled. So I don't know, maybe I can apply this principle of physics. Then I saw how some folks were pumping cold water through a copper coil attached to the front of a fan. That kind of reminds me of that big, huge outdoor cooling fan that I saw at the Enchanted Rock State Park. Then I saw some interesting swamp cooler designs. And then after a couple of weeks and many trips to Lowe's and the Home Depot, I determined I had enough supplies to at least start something. Well, I decided to build a device like the cooler air machine. That way I can still use my Coleman cooler as an ice chest. So once I got her down, I then proceeded to take the lid off. You see, I'm going to use the lid, or the bottom inside of the edge of the lid, as a template for cutting a piece of plywood that will be used to mount the fan and the exhaust ports to. And I'm just going to use a jigsaw to cut the fit, and it looks like it's a good fit to me. Then I just use a compass, draw up my hole for my fan. Then, of course, I'm going to drill a pilot hole and then cut it out with a jigsaw. Doesn't have to be perfect, and I'll show you why later. Well, there's my fan. It's a heavy duty one used in commercial applications. Starting to feel like Tim the Toolman Taylor with that kind of fan. Next, I just took some 2.5-inch PVC pipe and cut it into lengths about 17 to 18 inches in length. Then I used the pipes to figure out where I wanted them on the plywood base, and then of course drew my circles, and then drilled some pilot holes, and then used the jigsaw to cut along the inside of the lines to ensure a tight fit. There, a nice test fit once again. So I need to insulate the plywood base. I used the plywood base as a template and cut out some styrofoam sheet that I got at Hobby Lobby to match the base. There, another nice test fit. Went ahead and began painting my handles white. Then the next step was to use silicone glue and glue the styrofoam to the plywood base. I used a couple of boxes filled with my clamps to apply pressure to the plywood base and styrofoam. While it was drying, I finished up painting the bottoms of the handle. After the glue dried, I used the jigsaw to cut out the styrofoam holes. Nice test fit once again. And it works. Well, it's time to paint that base. After all, it is plywood, and that's subject to rot and wet conditions. So I put a primer coat of Kills on it. And while that's drying, I'll just put the lid back onto the ice chest again. There, it's good as new again. Now for a round of navy blue spray paint to match the cooler. After that dried, I used silicone glue again to seal the bottom of the base from moisture and give the styrofoam part of the base more strength. I also sealed the insides of the fan and exhaust holes to ensure a tight fit. And now I just need to attach my handles. There, I'm done with the base unit. It runs great. What's nice is most of the components just fit inside the ice chest. But we need to do some testing now. The ambient air inside the garage was around 87.3 degrees, but the air blasting out of the exhaust pipes without ice in the chest was 82.2. I guess those nerds in India knew what they were talking about. Next, I placed some plastic bottles with frozen water inside into the chest, and then also went down to our neighborhood Buc-ee's to get more ice. After pouring the ice into the ice chest, the exhaust temperatures came down to 68.7 degrees. Next, I headed on over to HEB for some Ziploc baggies and some dry ice. So when I got home, I broke up the dry ice and parsed it out into the baggies and then threw it into the ice chest. After that, my exhaust temperatures proceeded to go down to 66 degrees.